The vast expanse of space twinkled with countless stars, each one a potential home to alien life. Among these stars, a bustling galactic community thrived, filled with beings of all shapes, sizes, and colors. This was the Galactic Union, a place where hundreds of alien species lived together in mostly peaceful coexistence. At the heart of this union was the Grand Council, a massive space station that looked like a glowing silver flower floating in the darkness of space. Inside, representatives from various planets gathered to discuss important matters and make decisions that affected billions of lives across the galaxy. On this particular day, the council chamber was buzzing with excitement and fear. Beings with tentacles, wings, multiple eyes, and even some made of pure energy were all talking at once. The topic of discussion: humans. Order in the council, shouted Zixnera, the current head of the Grand Council. Her blue skin shimmered as she waved her four arms, trying to calm the crowd. We must discuss the inclusion of humans in our galactic community calmly and rationally. A tall tree-like being named Arboros spoke up, his leaves rustling softly. But they're so unpredictable. Have you seen how quickly they adapt to new situations? It's unnatural. Exactly, chirped Pip, a small bird-like creature. That's what makes them fascinating. Think of all we could learn from them. As the debate raged on, a holographic display in the center of the room showed images of Earth and its inhabitants. Humans could be seen building towering skyscrapers, exploring deep oceans, and even taking their first steps on Mars. Their curiosity and drive to explore seemed boundless. But not everyone was impressed. In a dark corner of the chamber, a group of reptilian aliens whispered among themselves. "Humans are dangerous," one hissed. "They'll upset the balance we've worked so hard to maintain." Meanwhile, on the outskirts of known space, another topic was causing even more fear and concern. Reports were coming in of attacks by the HFY, the deadliest predator species known to the galaxy. The HFY were the stuff of nightmares. Standing over 3 meters tall, with razor-sharp claws and teeth that could tear through starship hulls, they were feared by even the toughest warriors. Their black, oil-like skin seemed to absorb light, and their eyes glowed an eerie red in the dark. No one knew where the HFY came from or what they wanted. All anyone knew was that they attacked without warning, leaving destruction in their wake. Entire colonies had been wiped out, and even the most advanced military ships were no match for their strange, organic-looking vessels. Back in the council chamber, a hologram of a recent HFY attack played. The room fell silent as they watched the terrifying creatures tear through defenses like they were made of paper. Zixnera sighed heavily. "This is why we need new allies. The humans, with their adaptability and unique perspective, might be able to help us deal with the HFY threat." The debate continued for hours, with arguments for and against human inclusion flying back and forth. Finally, a vote was called. The result was close, but in the end, it was decided. Humans would be officially welcomed into the Galactic Union. As news of this decision spread across the galaxy, reactions were mixed. Some aliens celebrated, eager to meet and learn from their new neighbors. Others locked their doors and prepared for the worst, sure that these unpredictable humans would bring nothing but trouble. Little did anyone know that far away, on a small human research station orbiting a distant moon, a young scientist named Sarah Chen was about to make a discovery that would change everything. Her curiosity and compassion would soon shock the entire galaxy and challenge everything they thought they knew about the dreaded HFY. As Sarah peered through her advanced telescope, studying the strange patterns of a nearby nebula, she had no idea that she was about to embark on an adventure that would make her a legend throughout the stars. The stage was set, and the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what these strange, adaptable humans would do next. Sarah Chen floated through the abandoned space station, her magnetic boots making soft clicking sounds as she moved. The station, once a bustling hub of alien activity, was now dark and empty. Only the faint glow of emergency lights guided her way. "This place gives me the creeps," Sarah muttered to herself, her voice echoing in the empty corridors. She was here on a research mission, studying how different alien species had lived together in this remote outpost. As she turned a corner, her handheld scanner beeped loudly. "That's odd," she frowned, tapping the screen. "I'm picking up a life sign, but that's impossible. This station has been abandoned for years." Curiosity got the better of her, and Sarah decided to investigate. She followed the signal, her heart racing with each step. The beeping grew louder as she approached a sealed door at the end of a long hallway. With trembling hands, Sarah overrode the door's lock. As it slid open with a hiss, she gasped. There, in the dim light of the room, lay a creature she had only seen in nightmarish reports and blurry photos. A HFY. The fearsome predator was sprawled on the floor, its black, oil-like skin glistening. But something was wrong. The creature wasn't moving, and Sarah could see a deep gash in its side, oozing a strange, glowing blue liquid. Every instinct told Sarah to run, to call for help, to do anything but stay near this deadly being. But as she looked closer, she saw something in the HFY's glowing red eyes that she never expected: pain and fear. It's injured," Sarah whispered, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. She took a cautious step forward, then another. The HFY's eyes followed her, but it made no move to attack. Sarah's mind raced. Everything she had been taught told her that HFY were mindless killers, incapable of anything but destruction. But the creature before her seemed different. Making a decision that would change the course of galactic history, Sarah reached for her medkit. "I can't believe I'm doing this," she muttered, pulling out a universal medgel. As she approached that HFY, it let out a low growl. Sarah froze, her heart pounding. But the growl wasn't aggressive. It sounded almost questioning. "It's okay," Sarah said softly, holding up the medgel. "I want to help you. Do you understand?" To her amazement, that HFY's eyes seemed to focus on the medgel. It then looked back at Sarah and gave a small nod. With shaking hands, Sarah applied the gel to the creature's wound. The HFY tensed at first, then relaxed as the medicine began to take effect. As she worked, Sarah's scientific mind kicked into overdrive. She noticed things about the HFY's anatomy that no one had ever reported before. Its skin, far from being just black, had intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change. And its eyes, while still glowing red, had depths that hinted at intelligence. "You're not what we thought you were, are you?" Sarah murmured, fascinated. The HFY made a series of clicks and whistles. Sarah jumped, then laughed nervously. "Are you trying to talk to me?" Over the next few hours, Sarah worked tirelessly to heal the HFY's wound. As she did, she began to notice patterns in its sounds. It wasn't just random noise, it was language. By the time the wound was fully closed, Sarah had made more progress in understanding the HFY than the entire galactic community had in centuries. As she packed up her medkit, Sarah realized she was no longer afraid. She looked at the HFY, who was now sitting up, watching her with what seemed like curiosity. "My name is Sarah," she said slowly, pointing to herself. "Sarah." The HFY was silent for a moment, then made a series of soft clicks and whistles. Sarah listened carefully, then smiled. "Zex," she repeated. "Is that your name?" The HFY, Zex, nodded. As Sarah sat there, in an abandoned space station millions of light years from Earth, she realized she had just done the impossible. She had made first contact with the galaxy's most feared species. And this was only the beginning. Days turned into weeks as Sarah Chen continued her stay on the abandoned space station. What had started as a routine research mission had turned into the most important first contact in galactic history. Sarah spent every waking moment with Zex, the injured HFY she had saved, learning and discovering more about this misunderstood species. At first, communication was difficult. Sarah used a mix of simple words, hand gestures, and drawings to convey her thoughts. Zex responded with a complex series of clicks, whistles, and body movements. But as time passed, they began to understand each other better. Zex, Sarah said one day, pointing to a holographic image of Earth. "This is my home, where humans come from." Zex studied the image, his red eyes glowing with interest. He made a series of rapid clicks, which Sarah had come to recognize as excitement. Then, to her amazement, Zex began to draw in the air with his clawed hand. The movement left a faint, glowing trail that formed an image of a planet Sarah had never seen before. Is that your home world?" Sarah asked, her eyes wide with wonder. Zex nodded, then made a sad, low whistle. Sarah had learned this sound meant sorrow or regret. "What happened?" she asked gently. Over the next few hours, through a mix of drawings, gestures, and their growing shared language, Zex told a story that shattered everything Sarah thought she knew about the HFY. The HFY weren't mindless predators. They were refugees. Their homeworld had been destroyed by a cosmic event, forcing them to flee in great arc ships. But their appearance and inability to communicate with other species led to fear and misunderstandings. What the galaxy saw as attacks were often just desperate attempts to gather resources or find a new home. As Sarah listened, she felt her heart breaking for Zex and his people. "We've been so wrong about you," she whispered, reaching out to touch Zex's arm gently. To her surprise, instead of feeling cold and slimy, Zex's skin was warm and had a texture like smooth leather. Zex made a sound that Sarah had never heard before. It was like a purr mixed with a chirp. She realized with a start that it was laughter. Zex was laughing. The fearsome HFY had a sense of humor. Over the following days, Sarah learned more and more about HFY culture. She discovered that their shifting skin patterns were actually a form of emotional expression. The patterns Zex displayed around her were often warm and welcoming. Zex, in turn, was fascinated by human culture. He watched with great interest as Sarah showed him videos of Earth's diverse environments and animals. When she played him some music, Zex swayed in a way that could only be described as dancing. As they grew closer, Sarah realized she had to share her discoveries with the galaxy. But she was afraid. How would the Galactic Union react to the news that one of their own was befriending the supposedly deadly HFY? "Zex," Sarah said one day, her voice serious, "I need to tell others about you, about the truth of your people, but I'm scared of how they'll react. Will you help me?" Zex's skin rippled with patterns of determination and trust. He nodded, then gently took Sarah's hand in his large, clawed one. The gesture was clear. They would face this challenge together. With a deep breath, Sarah activated her long-range communicator. It was time to shock the galaxy. As the call connected to the Galactic Union headquarters, Sarah squeezed Zex's hand. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew this moment would change everything. The human and the HFY stood side by side, ready to bridge the gap between their peoples and usher in a new era of understanding. The fate of the galaxy now rested on an unlikely friendship forged in the depths of space. The news spread across the galaxy like wildfire. "Human befriends HFY." The headlines flashed on every screen, in every language, on every planet. The impossible had happened, and the galaxy was in shock. In the Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Union, chaos reigned. Representatives from hundreds of species shouted over each other, their voices a cacophony of disbelief, anger, and fear. "It's a trick," yelled Arboros, the tree-like being, his leaves shaking with agitation. "The HFY must have brainwashed the human." Pip, the small bird-like creature, fluttered excitedly. "But what if it's true? This could change everything." At the center of it all stood Zixnera, the head of the Grand Council, her blue skin pale with stress. She raised all four of her arms, calling for silence. "Order. We must approach this rationally." On the main screen, the image of Sarah Chen and Zex appeared. They stood side by side, an unlikely pair that had the power to reshape galactic relations. Sarah's voice, calm but firm, filled the chamber. Members of the Galactic Union, I know this is hard to believe, but I assure you, Zex and the HFY are not our enemies. They are refugees, misunderstood, and in need of our help. A murmur ran through the crowd. Zex then stepped forward, his black skin rippling with patterns of peace and hope. He began to speak, his clicks and whistles translated by a device Sarah had created. We never meant to harm anyone, Zex's translated voice said. We were lost, desperate. We couldn't communicate. Please, give us a chance to explain. The chamber fell silent, the weight of this moment heavy on everyone present. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, reactions varied wildly. On some planets, people took to the streets in protest, fear of the HFY deeply ingrained in their cultures. Signs reading "Humans betray galaxy" and "HFY can't be trusted" waved in angry crowds. But on other worlds, a different movement was growing. Inspired by Sarah's bravery, people began to question everything they thought they knew about the HFY. Young aliens started wearing T-shirts with slogans like "Give peace a chance" and "HFY are people too." Back on Earth, Sarah's family was thrust into the spotlight. Reporters camped outside their home, hoping for any insight into the woman who had changed galactic history. Sarah's mother, Lin Chen, stood bravely before the cameras. My daughter has always been curious and kind, she said, her voice filled with pride. If she believes in the HFY, then so do I. As the days passed, more information about the HFY came to light. Sarah and Zex released videos showing HFY culture, their art, their music. The galaxy watched in amazement as the fearsome predators they once knew revealed themselves to be a rich, complex civilization. But not everyone was convinced. A group of hardline military leaders from various species met in secret. "This is our chance," one of them growled. "The HFY are exposed. We should strike now, wipe them out once and for all." Unaware of these dark plans, Sarah and Zex continued their mission of peace. They traveled from planet to planet, meeting with leaders and ordinary citizens alike. Everywhere they went, they faced a mix of fear and fascination. On one particularly tense world, an angry mob surrounded their ship. But as Sarah and Zex emerged, standing tall and unafraid, something remarkable happened. A small child, curious rather than fearful, walked up to Zex. The crowd held its breath as the child reached out a hand. Zex, his skin shimmering with gentle colors, knelt down. Slowly, carefully, he allowed the child to touch his arm. The child giggled, surprised by the warm, leathery texture. This simple moment, captured and shared across the galaxy, did more to change hearts and minds than any speech or policy ever could. As Sarah watched, she felt a glimmer of hope. The road ahead would be long and difficult, but she knew in her heart that this was just the beginning. The galaxy was changing, and she and Zex were at the center of it all. The question on everyone's mind was, what would happen next? The Grand Council chamber was packed. Representatives from every corner of the galaxy had gathered for this historic moment. At the center stood Sarah Chen and Zex, ready to address the misconceptions about the HFY once and for all. Sarah took a deep breath and began. "Honored members of the Galactic Union, what I'm about to show you will change everything you thought you knew about the HFY." She activated a holographic display. The image showed a beautiful world with towering crystal structures and lush alien vegetation. "This is Arkaya, the homeworld of the HFY," Sarah explained. Or rather it was. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Zex stepped forward, his skin rippling with patterns of sorrow. His words, translated by Sarah's device, filled the room. "Our world was destroyed by a gamma ray burst from a nearby star. We had no choice but to flee." The hologram changed, showing massive arc ships leaving a crumbling planet. That Karkai are not invaders or mindless predators, Sarah continued. They are refugees searching for a new home. Murmurs of disbelief and sympathy spread through the crowd. Zixnera, the head of the council, leaned forward. But the attacks? The destruction? How do you explain that? Sarah nodded, understanding the confusion. Those were tragic misunderstandings. Watch. The hologram now showed a XRK ship approaching an alien space station. The XRK's method of communication involves complex bioelectric signals, Sarah explained. When they tried to communicate with other species, it often overloaded and damaged our technology. The image showed the XRK ship's attempt at communication, causing systems on the space station to malfunction and explode. What we saw as an attack was actually a desperate attempt to make contact, Sarah said softly. Zex's translator conveyed his words, filled with regret. We never meant to cause harm. We were lost, alone, and didn't understand why everyone feared us. We only wanted help. The chamber was silent, the weight of this revelation heavy on everyone present. Years of fear and misunderstanding were being unraveled before their eyes. Sarah continued, revealing more about XRK culture. She showed images of their art, beautiful, ever-changing murals created by the bioluminescent patterns on their skin. She played recordings of their music, haunting melodies that resonated on frequencies most species couldn't even hear. The Karkai are a peaceful, advanced civilization, Sarah explained. Their technology is beyond anything we've seen. They can terraform barren worlds, cure diseases we thought incurable, and their knowledge of space travel could revolutionize our understanding of the universe. As she spoke, Zex demonstrated some of this technology. He produced a small device that, with a simple gesture, created a miniature ecosystem complete with tiny plants and insects. The council members watched in awe as life sprang from seemingly nothing. Arboros, the tree-like being who had been one of the loudest voices against the XRK, spoke up. If they are so advanced, why didn't they just take what they needed? Why suffer in silence for so long? Zex's answer was simple but powerful. Because that is not our way. We believe in harmony, in coexistence. We would rather perish than harm another sentient species. The chamber erupted in discussion. The revelation of the XRK's true nature was changing minds and hearts across the galaxy. But not everyone was convinced. In the back of the room, a group of hardline military leaders exchanged dark glances. Their plans for war were crumbling, but they weren't ready to give up just yet. As the session ended, Sarah and Zex stood side by side, hopeful but aware that their journey was far from over. They had opened the galaxy's eyes, but changing deeply ingrained fears would take time. Outside the council chamber, crowds had gathered. Aliens of all species waited anxiously for news. As Sarah and Zex emerged, a hush fell over the crowd. Then, slowly, a chant began to build. Peace, peace, peace. Sarah squeezed Zex's hand, her eyes shining with tears of joy. They had taken the first step towards a new era of galactic cooperation. The future, once clouded by fear, now shone bright with possibility. The weeks following the revelation about the XRK were a whirlwind of activity. Sarah, Chen, and Zex found themselves at the center of the most important peace talks in galactic history. The Grand Council Chamber, once a place of fear and suspicion, had become a hub of hope and possibility. Sarah stood before the assembled representatives, her voice strong and clear. Today, we begin a new chapter in our shared story. The XRK are not our enemies, but our potential allies. Together, we can build a better future for all species. Zex, standing tall beside her, his skin shimmering with patterns of determination and hope, added through the translator. We offer our knowledge, our technology, and our friendship. All we ask in return is a chance to find a new home and live in peace. The chamber buzzed with excitement. Species that had been bitter enemies just days ago were now engaged in eager discussion. The bird-like pip fluttered excitedly, chirping, "Think of what we could learn from each other." Even Arboros, once a vocal opponent of the HFY, seemed moved. His leaves rustled thoughtfully as he spoke. Perhaps we judged too hastily. We should give peace a chance. But not everyone was convinced. A group of hardline military leaders, led by General Kraz of the warrior krill species, watched the proceedings with narrowed eyes. Kraz growled to his allies, "This is madness. The XRK cannot be trusted. We must act now before it's too late." Unaware of the plotting, Sarah and Zex continued their work. They organized cultural exchange programs, bringing young aliens from across the galaxy to meet and learn from Sarkai youth. The sight of children from different species playing together, learning each other's languages and customs, did more to change hearts and minds than any official treaty. One day, as Sarah was preparing for another round of talks, she received an urgent message. A Karkai ship, damaged and low on resources, was approaching a populated system. The old fears were resurfacing, and some were calling for military action. Sarah knew this was a critical moment. She rushed to the council chamber, Zex by her side. "This is our chance," she said breathlessly, "to prove that cooperation is possible, that we can overcome our fears." The council was divided. Some wanted to send warships, others to turn the XRK away. But Sarah had a different idea. "Let's send a joint mission," she proposed. XRK engineers, working alongside teams from other species, to repair the Ark and guide it safely to a temporary refuge. There was hesitation, but also curiosity. Zixnera, the head of the council, nodded slowly. "It is risky, but it could work. Who will lead this mission?" Sarah stepped forward without hesitation. "I will," she said firmly. Then, looking at Zex, she added, "We will." As preparations for the mission began, excitement spread throughout the galaxy. Many volunteered to join the team, eager to work alongside the mysterious Xarkai. It was a powerful symbol of the new era of cooperation. But in the shadows, General Kraz and his allies were making their own plans. "If this mission succeeds," Kraz growled, "we'll never be rid of the Xarkai. We must ensure it fails, no matter the cost." As Sarah's ship prepared to depart, crowds gathered to wish them well. Aliens of all species cheered and waved, their fears replaced by hope and curiosity. Sarah looked out at the diverse crowd, then at Zex standing beside her. She felt a surge of pride and determination. "Ready for our next adventure?" she asked with a smile. Zex's skin rippled with patterns of excitement and affection. Through the translator, he replied, "With you, my friend, I'm ready for anything." As their ship lifted off, carrying a crew as diverse as the galaxy itself, Sarah knew that the real challenge was just beginning. They had to prove that different species could not just coexist, but work together, trust each other, and even become friends. The fate of the galaxy rested on the success of their mission, and somewhere out there, a damaged Ark ship full of homeless Karkai was waiting, hoping for a new beginning. 5 years had passed since Sarah Chen and Zex embarked on their mission to save the damaged Karkai Ark ship. The galaxy had changed in ways no one could have imagined. Sarah stood on the observation deck of the newly built Harmony Station, a massive space habitat that served as a symbol of interspecies cooperation. Beside her, Zex's skin shimmered with patterns of contentment and pride. "Can you believe how far we've come?" Sarah asked, gazing out at the stars. Zex's translator conveyed his response. "It is more than I ever dared to hope for, my friend." Their mission 5 years ago had been a turning point. Despite sabotage attempts by General Kraz and his followers, Sarah and Zex's diverse team had successfully repaired the Ark ship. The image of Harkai working side by side with humans, Krells, and other species had changed hearts and minds across the galaxy. In the years that followed, the XRK had shared their advanced technology, revolutionizing medicine, space travel, and environmental restoration. Barren worlds were transformed into lush paradises. Diseases once thought incurable were wiped out, The galaxy entered an unprecedented era of prosperity and peace. But it hadn't been an easy journey. Sarah remembered the tense moments, the setbacks, the times when it seemed like fear and mistrust would win. There had been attacks by extremists, political opposition, and cultural clashes to overcome. Yet, for every challenge, there had been moments of triumph. Sarah smiled, recalling the day the first HFY human child was born, a symbol of the deep bonds forming between species. She thought of the galactic sports leagues where HFY athletes competed alongside others, their games watched by billions. A chime sounded, interrupting her thoughts. It was time for the ceremony. Sarah and Zex made their way to the Grand Hall of Harmony Station. As they entered, a diverse crowd of aliens rose to their feet, cheering. At the center stood Zixnera, her blue skin now wrinkled with age, but her eyes bright with joy. "Welcome," Zixnera's voice echoed through the hall, "to this historic day. Today, we officially recognize the HFY as full members of the Galactic Union, and we honor those who made this possible." Sarah felt a lump in her throat as Zixnera continued. "Sarah Chen, step forward." With a reassuring nod from Zex, Sarah approached the podium. Zixnera held up a shimmering medal. "For your bravery, compassion, and unwavering commitment to peace, we bestow upon you the title of Galactic Peacemaker. Your actions have reshaped our galaxy for the better." As the medal was placed around her neck, Sarah saw faces in the crowd. Pip, Arboros, even some reformed Krells who had once followed General Krass. They all wore expressions of respect and gratitude. Sarah stepped up to the microphone, her voice filled with emotion. "This honor belongs not just to me, but to every being who chose understanding over fear, cooperation over conflict. We've proven that the greatest strength lies not in our differences, but in our willingness to work together despite them." She turned to Zex, extending her hand. "None of this would have been possible without the courage and friendship of the HFY. They taught us that true peace comes not from eliminating differences, but from embracing them." Zex joined her at the podium, his skin glowing with patterns of deep friendship and hope for the future. Together, they faced the cheering crowd, a living symbol of the new galactic order. As the ceremony ended and celebrations began, Sarah found a quiet moment with Zex. "What's next for us, old friend?" she asked. Zex's response came with a ripple of excitement across his skin. "The galaxy is vast, Sarah. There are still so many wonders to explore, so many new friends to meet. Our journey is far from over." Sarah grinned, feeling the familiar thrill of adventure. She knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, human, HFY, and all the diverse species of the galaxy, united in their shared quest for knowledge, understanding, and peace. As they looked out at the stars once more, Sarah and Zex knew that this was not the end of their story. It was just the beginning of a new chapter in the greatest adventure of all, the journey of unity in diversity. The galaxy, once divided by fear, now pulsed with the endless possibilities of a future built on friendship, understanding, and the unbreakable bonds forged between the most unlikely of allies.